Well, this hunt for this bobcat has been pretty interesting. Today we're going to show some more photos that I did not show in the previous video. And then we're going to show some other videos, some snippets and quick photos of some other brands that I inspected today. Today was a kind of a long day. I went to a bunch of dealers and just shopped around. I've never seen the Toros up close, or the Hustlers, and Kioti is another brand. So let's get to it. So Bobcat, right to the point, I don't think there's going to be one of these in my stable. Why, you ask? I thought it was so badass. Well, I like them. It's got a few areas that need to be improved, but the way Bobcat works with their pricing and their dealers is, I don't know, it's a pain in the ass to get one of these. And if I can get one, it's probably not going to be till next year. Basically, these things came out in 2020, and there's no change between the 20, 21, or 22 models, other than the price. The price went from 8 to 85 to now 95, and then this month it jumped up to 9,700. So what's going on? Well, all the inventory, most of the inventory that these Bobcat dealers have are 2021 models left over, or they've got a few 22s that showed up around October last year, January, March of this year, and they come in on the crate, and within a few days they do their PDI and out they go. And when I mean out they go, out to the front yard they go. They go sit on the grass right by the highway on display, and they just get hammered, man, from the UV sun, the rain, the weather. It's been 100 degrees plus for months here in Texas. And, you know, vehicle emissions, industrial fallout, who knows? I mean, these poor Bobcats. Anywho, so what they're doing is they're playing the supply and demand game and the materials and all this. So they're selling 2021s for 2022 MSRP pricing. Or if you do a cash deal, now this is a 2021, that's a leftover. We're in 2022 and we're almost done with 2022. So pretty soon the 22s are going to be last year's model. Then they're like, well, it's a new mower. I'm like, well, if everyone wants them and they're new mowers, why do you have 10 of them sitting outside for a year in the sun? No way that's going in my garage. But they're doing a cash price on a 21 model, which is off of the 2022 MSRP, and the cash price is more than the original 2021 MSRP. So we're looking at $8,800, $8,700, $8,500. That's your cash price for a year and a half, 2-year-old mower that's been sitting outside for a year? There's no way. Nope, not in my stable. So anyways, so here's a control panel. I've got a few slides we're just going to go through and point out some stuff that I don't like. Just me personally, it may not bother you, but the stuff that I see in my experience of putting my hands and my eyes on these machines in person and just noticing things. You know, every manufacturer is different, how they arrange stuff or how they do stuff. But here, standard equipment, right? You know, your hour meter and your fuel cutoff, your gas gauge, your red PTO switch, they come in yellow. I like the rocker switches. Those have a better feel. Off to the left, that control arm, the way that's bolted, that control arm is actually very thin. And there's been recalls on the previous model, the green Bobcats, for them things breaking. I'd like to see them beef that up. And under the hood here, we'll start with the wire looms. Those are those plastic wire looms. And it's great, but I'd like to see some Skag quality wire looms in there. Now, Skag quality wire looms, that thick braid, I don't know what it's made out of, can be a royal pain in the ass when it comes time to working on the wires or lengthening or splicing into, or etc. But these typical ones here, if you've got these under the hood of your car, you'll know from experience, just from the heat and whatnot, those things will start to deteriorate, crack, flake up, and just disintegrate. And pretty soon you've got wires that are now hanging in the fans, on the hydros, maybe getting into the springs and the belts, pulleys, you know, yada yada. It's one of those hurry up and wait situations. You don't know what's going to happen. Off to the right hand side, oh, by the way, that spring on the left hand side, that's pretty weak. It's a weak looking spring. That could be a weak link. I know the ZT3000 was having some spring failures, but And the right hand side, or there it is down at the bottom now, the fuel switch that's got dual tanks, which is cool. But I like to see them put that fuel switch somewhere else, like on the side, like the ZT6000, I believe the 6100 have it on the side, so you don't have to reach around the back and burn your hand on the engine while you're just simply trying to switch the fuel tanks. But yeah, I can't see this thing sitting outside. Yeah, it's a lawnmower, it's a tool, but I mean, just day in, day out, some places, some different areas of the country probably get more rain than Texas is, for sure. We're 100 degrees plus for over a month, and man, the UV and the heat, and then the rain, every now and then it rains over here, and it's hammering these poor things. But yeah, I need to, if I buy one, it needs to be out of the wrapper, within a week of it coming in, for sure. So picture the tire. I don't know why I took a picture of the wheel, just probably a reminder. I like the tread pattern. That is a different pattern and design from what I'm used to seeing. I don't even know the name of the tires now. Grass catcher, who knows? There's so many freaking tires and wheels and sizes and widths and all the marketing involved with it. The chain deck, you see that off to the left, it's supported by chains. Some of them are supported by bolts, other brands. I kind of like the chains, but I will say to adjust and level this deck, you are looking at loosening that bolt, and that deck will just move. So you need to almost support the deck and then make fine-tune adjustments. That's probably the only way you can do this correctly on a level surface, of course. The 6100 has a system where you can just turn the bolt or turn the nut and it'll move up and down in increments. That's the way to fly. So here's standard FX 691. Of course, this is the tried and true commercial engine, metal housing, canister filter. It's got the little plates there. You can pull those off and blow out the heads and keep it nice and cool. But yeah, the starter alone on these things is pretty pricey, almost 300-ish bucks for that starter, if I'm not mistaken. And water can hit the screen and the area where the air goes in, the intake we'll call it, and just down and leach down into the starter bendix, maybe get inside the starter. This stuff just doesn't need to be sitting outside like this. But hey, I'm not the dealer. So what else here? I remember that exhaust getting really hot back there. I mean, it's going to heat up everything in Texas, right? But that was one thing that stuck out to me. I don't think it was a design flaw by any means. It's just the nature of the beast. All of these engines get really, really hot. So under the seat they got this tube, and that's where the owner's manual is supposed to be. I went poking around on Bobcat's website, and I noticed that if you'd like to purchase an owner's manual, you can for the low price of about $70, $60, or if you want it on a CD, it's like ridiculous amounts of money. Please tell me that they come with an owner's manual. I don't know any other company, and you guys can chime in the comments, I'm sure they exist, where you have to purchase a freaking owner's manual. Hopefully it comes with one, but I'm assuming to get a spare. Hell, you can go to other manufacturer websites and just click on downloads and manuals, and boom, it's right there. Then you can go shopping and do all your specs and comparisons and all that. So, interestingly enough, that switch, it looks like it's just a single pole, single throw switch with the dual contacts or single contacts. I kind of like that. So, quick picture of the anti-scalping wheel. It's supported on both sides. I know people mention that, it's only supported on one side, or this one's supported on two sides. That one looks a little thin. I bet you could damage that if you ran into something without trying. So then you've got a broken wheel maybe, or twisted at an angle, but I don't know. And the rear bumper area that wraps around, it's kind of like a cage, and the frame stops and it wraps around. I should have mentioned that in the earlier photos. So if you back into a pole, tree or something, it's going to dent that pretty substantially and probably push into and damage the muffler as well. One thing about the Skag on a Liberty Z is that the frame went out. It stuck out towards past the engine, and then it wrapped around with some pretty decent, I want to say it was 7 gauge. I don't think it was 10. I think it was a little thicker. So the Skag seemed like it had beefier rear end protection. Onto the deck. They make two decks, and I think one's a 4-inch, this one here, and then there's a 6-inch height deck. They call it an Air FX. And it might be beefier underneath and more baffling on the FX. But this one looked okay. The way that the deck is supported and the welds and everything, it's just enough. It's thick, it's got reinforcement, it's got the little nose or lip, which they claim allows the grass to stand up straight. Well, if you're spinning your blades at 18,000 what is it, per second, feet per second, or just, I mean, your grass better stand up straight with all that vacuum. I don't think that that's going to make that much of a difference, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But everything looks good. The belt thickness is decent. I don't have any issues on the deck. It seems like it weighs a good amount, so only time would tell. Spindles look decent. 6 bolts. I want to say those are grade 5 off the top of my head. Again, belts are good. Everything looks solid. The idler pulleys, all that. All of the hardware, if you will, the bolts, the chains and stuff, it looks good quality. It's sufficient enough for that deck size, for that weight, and for that frame. Only thing I don't like is you can see is a little bit of rust here and there. And again, these machines sit outside, and I suppose if you mow in damp environments, you know, you're going to get some damp grass up there, and if it sits, if you don't blow that stuff out and get it out the spindles or under the deck, yeah, it's going to rust. But I would rather be the one responsible for allowing my deck to rust. I don't want it to come pre-rusted. But dealers now are, before they go out the door, they touch them up with touch-up paint. I don't know if I like that or not, but I don't know. I guess out of sight, out of mind, but I don't know. And there's a shot under the deck. Hard to get all the baffling and stuff in there, but there is some curvature. Again, I'm not too familiar with these as far as cutting. Obviously, I've never mowed with one, but from what I read online, the few reviews out and in the forums, that these things are pretty decent. Spindle aluminum sealed. Most of them are sealed. I don't see an issue with that unless, again, moisture. You could rot out from the top, and over time you could rust through. But I don't see that there would be any real issues there. All the hardware looks good. All that extra reinforcement on the spindle housing looks pretty decent. So I should have engaged the PTO when I took it for a test drive. They said I could. Some dealers are very anal about that. Don't turn on the blades. I'm like, okay, but sometimes you want to feel and hear the deck and the vibration associated with it. They're all different. So. Well, that is the 3500 and the 6000. Like I said, these things are very similar size, but that 6000 there on the right weighs almost twice as much, almost 1400 pounds, and the ZT3500 is just over 700 pounds. And everything's just a little bit bigger and beefier. All the metal a little bit thicker. Removable casters in the front. That's one advantage to that. The deck system with the handle, you get the optional foot pedal to raise the deck, and there's a handle that you can squeeze and assist and raise the deck via hand. I don't know if I like that, but the control arms are very beefy, and there's an adjustment where you can really tweak the control arms to get them matched. I'm not sure if I'm crazy about that diamond foam that they put on there, but everything's a little bit beefier on that 6000. I think the price on that's a couple grand more, but it weighs twice as much. On to the Toro, and we're almost done. We're going to wrap this up really quick, but I had a chance to visit a dealer and went through a couple Toros. I've seen them online, never seen them in person. They look like they're built well. They're kind of like a deer, kind of like oh gosh, Bad Boy. I hate to say it. They're just different. You got rivets here, and just some things are kind of flimsy and cheap, and others like, okay, that's overkill. But there's so many models on the Toros that I had to make a quick video, and we'll play that here in just a second. But basically, it was just a reminder for me to see which ones were which. There's so many models on these things. They all have different hydros, different engines. Some have LED lights. Some have I-beam friggin' caster suspension in the front. Different seats, different tires, and Man, it's crazy. So we're going to let that video play here in just a minute. But yeah, Toros, who knew? For my own memory here, this is a Toro 4000 Pro FX 801 with 4400s. Here's a Toro 2000 FX 730 with 3400s. Here's a 2000 HDX FX 730 with 3800 hydros. This has the MyRide suspension. Then here's your regular Toro 2000 with a Toro engine. 4000 Pro, dial seat, monster casters. 2000 regular seat. 2000 HDX MyRide LED. Well, I don't think I'll be going with a Toro after looking at it and what they want for those things. They're anywhere in the $9,000 to $12,000, $13,000 range cash price. So, Hustler, man, everybody talks about how smooth these things are. I had the opportunity to drive one, but I did not take it. But looking at the machine, it seems to be okay. They're on par with everything else, pretty decently made. I see why they get rant and raves, good reviews. One thing I did not like, trying to raise that deck. That sucker is heavy. It did not want to move. The pin system's similar to Skag. You got your deck lock on the behind that silver lever. But the way that deck is supported, they're not chains. They're these looks like very flimsy rods, and some people have had some of those break for the deck lift. And man, I don't know, but I should have drove the thing. It seems pretty decent. Not too bad. Still has reservoirs and the hydros. I like that. Have you heard of Kioti? They got some different zero turns out there. And man, I just took less than a minute for me to look at this thing and say, nope. You look at it and like, well, what's wrong? The casters look like they're thick and this, and nah. Those control arms, the way that they're welded onto this little tab that's then bolted, those suckers, those might be, I don't know if they're worse than the bad boys. The bad boys are pretty bad. You look at them and they're like, oh, they're adjustable and stuff, and then you go up there and you just twist one. They're all hollowed out. They're ready to break, but those were pretty bad. Man. Anyways, well, thanks for listening to this video, and I like to look at zero turns and share my experiences. But man, it doesn't look like I'll be getting a Bobcat anytime soon. Not unless they come down to earth with their 2-year-old pricing. Alright guys, we'll catch you on the next one.